Welcome everyone to Wednesday Night Live, where we are back. Allison will not be joining us tonight; she's not feeling too well. But we got Tim and our Australian European correspondent, Mister Paul, down there.
Counterpart.
Our counterpart. He's with us tonight. So we got kind of an interesting topic we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about some other things too as well. We want to just kind of have a laid back show tonight and just talk about some good things for once. Look, Paul's just like, what good stuff? We'll find good stuff, Paul. There's some good stuff out there. I think are we all sick?
Only you two, so just prepare for a lot of coughing tonight, folks.
Yeah, we'll do our best. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about innovation and how these new regulations may affect not just our e-liquid, but maybe eventually down the road. Paul, you think somewhat in the hardware department as well, correct?
Yeah.
So we're gonna kind of go through. I got five key important things that need to continue evolving in this industry for it to continue to grow and become common for everyone, safe for everyone, and hopefully someday have the general public accept it as a harm reduction product and leave us the fuck alone, right, guys?
We've been saying that since 2016.
Yeah,
we were saying that before then, but apparently now we
Yeah.
have to say it louder.
Yeah. We're gonna have to. I don't know what we have to do, but we'll figure it out. I know I'm happy with the people that are not even behind the scenes anymore, but there's quite a few important people now that I think have stepped above and beyond what they're capable of doing and doing what they needed to save this industry, and they're not worried about who's behind them, who's helping them. They're going to do this and they're going after it on their own. And I love seeing the group that's up there right now. And it's not just it's not YouTube reviewers, it's not Instagram people, it's not YouTube stuff. It's these are successful lawyers, doctors, individuals that have been in the industry for a long time, that know tobacco, they know nicotine, they know the system. And I'm just happy to see that we have people like that right now. And Paul is one of those people. I think Paul is brilliant. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna give you some credit. He's gonna be a doctor here pretty soon, a PhD. So we're gonna have to. What do you think? Go ahead, Tim.
Paul's IQ is higher than the wattage on my regulated mod.
No, Paul blows me away because Paul can go from
75, Paul. 75.
Yeah, Paul can go from breaking down a piece of hardware to actually knowing each single molecule that's involved in our e-liquid, and to me that's amazing. I can't do that, and I know that's what he's studying, and that's his livelihood. So I feel we're real lucky to have you on this show, Paul. I want you to know that because it helps for you make it easy for me to understand what the hell's going on, especially when it comes to mixtures and e-liquids and the different synthetics and all the compounds, all that stuff. So I'm glad you're a part of the show. So
well, that was part of the conversation at GTNF or hang on, I'm going to get this wrong. Yeah, GTNF.
Yeah.
That now the technology is at a major turning point when the vaping industry or tobacco harm reduction turned around and then started really going down the pathway of synthetics. Everything changed.
Yeah.
That was the turning point.
Yeah. And that's why I'm glad you're here and you're part of this show, because I think none of us can understand that more better. Can I say more better, Tim? No, I cannot say more better. I needed Tim as my English.
Can we rewind? Can we rewind the show and let him try again?
We're just glad that you're here and you make it easier for everyone to understand what's going on, especially when it comes to all that stuff.
It's not easy when you're sitting there reading through not one or two documents. You're reading through piles and piles of documents, and then you. Thanks, Becky. It's hard to sometimes dumb it down just a little bit better, so people can really understand what's going on. Because if I went down a whole science pathway, people would be sitting there scratching their heads, going,
Well,
how does that
you think
work?
about it, a lot of us vapors we're scratching our heads when you start throwing out all these different milliliters and synthetics and water and all these different things that are going on right now due to innovation. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let's swing over to Tim. Tim, how's your week going, buddy?
Well, I'm in debriefing decompression mode. Spent the entire last week in good old Curtis Bay, Maryland, which is not far from Baltimore, really. But yeah, so we had a successful go live. They just opened up a brand new 150,000 square foot I say I actually work for the company.
You can't say we.
I can't say. I can now officially say we because
Okay.
they pay they stroke my check every
That's
couple
right.
weeks.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, it was mostly uneventful. I mean, it wasn't like it was a from scratch implementation. So yeah, I think it went well. So now we're kind of in hypercare right now and moving on in the world. And other than that, I'll touch on it later. It has to do with one of our viewers. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so yeah, it's been a good week. So I can't really complain. I'm happy to be home again and working under my own roof. So
yeah, hell yeah. And Mr. Paul, how's your week going, buddy? Other than being sick like me.
No. I'm not as sick as I was, a week or so ago. I was pretty bad still, but I've been having a good week, and people might know out there in La La Land that Australia had a major data breach through one of their telcos. I've been heavily affected by it. I now have to change my passport, my driver's license, my ID cards, even my Medicare card. All of that was breached. It's out in the wild now, so that's fun. But other than that, trying to figure out what the weather's doing, and then now changing telcos, which is an absolute nightmare here in Australia.
Yeah,
it's not fun. And watching GTNF last night and watching Skip Murray. I am wearing pants. Knock it off. Don't start that shit. Not now. And I watched the consumer panel last night with Skip Murray, Alex from Kassar, and a couple of the others. And what Skip said nearly brought the whole room to tears. She was almost in tears while she was doing a speech. It was absolutely brilliant, put it that way. And it's these 2 days, I 2 or 3 days each year, I really look forward to some of these conferences that I'm part of. And this year, for the first time, I actually have media accreditation. So I'm allowed to now report and screenshots and things like that we can use. But over the next couple of weeks, I've reached out to a couple of the industry people that might work for rather large tobacco companies to actually be guests, to get the rundown of where they're going with their technology and what their pathway is and what their goals are for the next 5 years, which that will be very, very interesting if one of these takes the bite at the cake, because whoever else we've got on here, we're going to have to put together very strategic questions to try and pry more information out of them. And I'm very interested now with PMI and BAT, and I'll put Altria there as well. All three of them are working on new devices and new technologies after listening to what's been going on with the whole PMTA process. And they're all scratching their heads now as well. And I got to hear from the master in chief of the FDA now, and all I can say to you is, well, Amanda Wheeler's made a very good point on Twitter. As soon as his speech was over, it was like Snagglepuss. No word of a lie. Excellent. Stage right.
Yeah, he went for the buffet. He went looking for the buffet.
Dude, it was so strange.
Yeah.
Because he was meant to be there to take questions, and bam, off he goes.
Yeah.
No interaction with the industry whatsoever. And it's like, and he kept using these 3 words all the time, right throughout his whole presentation. I'm there scratching my head going, you have to be kidding.
Yeah.
Who said, oh, Michael Redford. Yeah, thank you. 100%.
Yeah.
It's Snagglepuss. And I've just actually used that picture. If everyone remembers Snagglepuss, it's right.
A little bit. I don't remember. That was way before me.
Well, it was a cartoon when we were kids.
I know.
And I've just gone and posted Snagglepuss up on AVM's thread on Twitter.
Yeah.
And everyone in our private chats, they're all laughing their asses off. They said that you couldn't sum it up any better.
Yeah. All right. Let's have Mr. Tim say hello to everybody out there. Timmy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Wednesday Night Live Show. This day, September 28th. And first off and foremost, all of our well wishes and prayers and thoughts are immediately with the people in Florida, especially Nick Orlando, who is a big contributor to the show and friend of the show. And so we are hoping that everything turns out okay for him. For everybody's purposes, I did check his page and he did post 42 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I will assume he's at least got cell service right now. But anyway, let's get to the names of the names. Stobe from Germany, from Berlin. Welcome to the show. Good to see you again. Liana, good to see you as always. Mr. Curtis Clemens, Michael Redfern, Becky Leopard in the house. How are you, dear? Haven't seen you in a while. Who else am I missing here? I know Mallory was way up at the top. I saw Mallory way early on.
Yeah.
She always does that to me. She posts like wicked early in the comment section, and then she doesn't say anything for like
there's that Boston word.
Another hour. Oh, Nessie. Good to see Nessie Vapes in here. Nessie, how you doing? Still scrolling like a champ. I know Mallory was in here. But anyway, real quick, want to touch on something that Mallory brought up. I got a message from Mallory on Twitter, and she had a really good idea for the show. She said we should, like every show, we should go and find and we should call it like stupid things ants say, and then go find a couple posts from the anti-speak contingent, whether it be Parents Against Vaping or whoever, and just sort of like poke some fun at some of the dumb stuff they have to say every week.
I like that idea.
Everybody involved, though, not just me or everybody.
Yeah.
Paul, that means you too, buddy.
Paul's he's game. Did you get everybody?
That's it. I think I did.
Yeah, you got it.
I think I did get everybody.
Paul likes to poke the bear.
Poke the bear. That's an understatement with me. I like being a little bit more surgical these days, but yeah, I think it's quite fun.
Insert long object here.
Oh, that's going to get us into trouble. That's going to get us into trouble.
There's a lot of speculation in there. A lot of things could be talked about. Well, let's get into the innovation. Innovation has always been a key component of this industry. It's the driving force that keeps pushing companies to one-up each other. Thank God, because I think if we still had the same shit we had back in 2015 and there was no innovation, how much would you hate life right now?
Would we know the difference?
Well, Yeah, because you assume something would eventually evolve and to become a better product. But if
Well, right. So
we
maybe
kept getting the same Smock Ninja crap that they just kept making that.
well, I agree with you. Yes, I mean, obviously, you're looking for ingenuity and moving forward in any industry. I mean, whether it be cars, food,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I totally agree with you. But what if we didn't know the difference?
Yeah,
That's a twisted reality
we
question.
live with the leaking tanks and the
But my point is, if we didn't know the difference, what?
what happened?
I don't know what he's pointing at.
We can't see what you see.
He's
You're
pointing.
you're muted.
You're muted, Paul. We can't hear. You're pointing and talking to nobody.
All right. Well, in the chat, Liana reached out to Nick, hanging in there with wind, rain, no power. Got the generator running. Thank you for checking in. Well, here we go.
All right, good,
So at least we got the update. Thank you, Liana. But well, I guess my point would be: do you think if we didn't have the innovation, do you think we'd be in the predicament we're in now?
You want a simple answer? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Just curious, because we didn't really have all the disposables and the pods and the stuff like that. That was anyway. Okay, just keep going. But I'm just saying, what if we didn't know the difference?
I hate saying it, but because it was a product that was necessary, and I think it came at the right time. I think it changed everything about the industry, and that's the sub tank. Sorry, but I think that changed everything. I think being able to vape that way, all of a sudden you started seeing e-liquid brands start to change. Everybody stopped.
And here he is. Speak of the man.
Yeah, he's got cell service.
Yeah,
so he's good.
yeah. It's
He's got internet.
But yeah, I think that's one of those products that I think changed the whole face of the industry. I think it made it I think it was important that it did come out because I think it Aspire, that first one, was amazing. Yeah, some of the best friggin' coils ever in that. And then with I always forget their name and I feel bad. Come on, Paul.
Who?
The other sub tank.
Well, there was
Kanger.
There was actually three that were the innovators.
Yeah.
It was Aspire, it was Kangatech, and the third company was UL with the very first Crown one.
Yeah,
those were the three.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I mean, I think that's important. So we're going to talk a little bit about how products have gotten more efficient, battery life, how the tank, they fixed a lot of issues with. I mean, with some of these things, it was just. Paul agreed. I mean, and Tim too, because all of us have dealt with it. Just the different thickness of an O-ring, how much that made a difference on some of these tanks from leaking, and having the correct O-ring was just, and thinking, why didn't companies put these O-rings in the first place? So we're gonna talk a little bit about that, and I broke it down to 5 things. So hardware, batteries, e-liquid, which is going to be really difficult because of PMTAs. There's not going to be a lot of innovation here with e-liquids, correct?
Right.
It's pretty much well, unless you're going to have to refile, unless things change to where you're capable of refiling new e-liquid.
Meaning that well, whatever.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
No, I was going to say, obviously, a back door was identified by method of the synthetics.
Yeah.
But the whole point is they still got stuck having to file PMTAs when the veil got lifted, because you knew the FDA was going to come after them before too long. So the point is we can't really. If Paul can reveal something that would allow something to get onto the market in its current state without having to file a new PMTA, we probably wouldn't see, other than that aqua thing that you were talking about.
Yeah. Pre-manufactured coils, wires, wicking materials, and then of course, like anything else, sorry, hold on. Vape shops have to evolve. Am I correct on that one, Paul? Vape shops are going to have to evolve. They're going to have to make some changes to move forward in this industry to guarantee that these shops stay open, they're going to have to make some changes. And I think majority of the shops realize some of the changes they need, and some of them have already done them. So with the card readers, and checking IDs and all that other stuff, there's going to be some changes. So which one do you guys want to start off with? Hardware, batteries, e-liquid, pre-manufactured coils, wires, and wicking materials, or vape shops?
That's such a list.
Hardware.
Okay, we're going hardware.
Go hardware. And now, as far as hardware, I mean, would you agree the three big chip makers is Gene, DNA, and Yeehi? Yeehi. God, I got
Yeehi. Just
Yeehi.
Yeehi. That's
Those
it.
are your three big ones, right?
Yeah. Maybe the most. I mean, there's several others out there, but I mean, does it maybe the most common three? Two of which are theoretically in the higher end devices.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want to call that higher end, more pricey devices, then
Well, the Gene chip is probably the most affordable one out of those three.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because that's pretty much in every, what is that, Vupu?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this one has an Axon chip in it, so I don't know. This one doesn't have a screen or anything, so I don't know if that plays a part either.
Who's that? What's the name on that?
Axon. AXON is the chip brand. It's in Vaporesso devices. They're like a Gene chip in the sense that they sense the coil resistance and then they regulate the power that's output.
You have the Gene chip, you have Evolve, you have Yeehi, you have Aspire, you have Inikin. They're the top 5 chip makers right now.
I forgot about Inikin. Yeah.
Right.
I forgot about it.
Forgot about Aspire because what they're doing, Aspire and Inikin, with what they're doing in their technology, is way above and beyond what's actually going on now. You have a lot of chips being made by the same companies under different names or under different contract agreements. That's the other thing that you need to take into consideration. But when you're talking Evolve and the DNA chips in particular, right? Yeah, Diocodes, but look, Diocodes is predominantly, that's a very high-end chip for a start. And unless you know what the hell you're doing with it, it's an absolute nightmare to run. I've got one mod here now left out of my collection with the Diocodes in it, and it's absolutely genius.
Yeah. Okay. If you thought the DNA chip was difficult to fucking work with, that one's a whole different ball game.
Well, that actually has motion sensors, so you can actually change the wattage in it and things like that. So that's a whole different ballpark. But
do you think Evolve is still the king of the hill when it comes to chip manufacturing for vaping devices? Do you think they're not? You don't think they're the preferred?
I think they were definitely the trendsetter from a hardware perspective when you got into things such as temperature control and accuracy in the numbers and how it was regulated. I certainly think that they set the precedent. But I think a lot of the chip makers behind them kind of caught up with the Joneses, so to speak, and were able to more accurately regulate temperature control and why it seems to be a part of every fucking device now. That's regulated in some way.
Well, the two that were playing with temperature control back in the day and right from the get-go were both Yeehi and Evolve. Right. They were the two, right? Yeah. But you're going to pay top dollar for anything that's got that chip in any of their devices. And then when they started going down the pathway, I think it was a race between Yeehi and Evolve to actually do real, proper colored screens and things like that. Their devices are very well built. Sometimes there are chip failures, but so be it. I paid more than $300 for a device, so don't even go there.
Yeah, I'll say this to Curtis, and this came from another Aussie that told me a long time ago, when we were first on the Example-Box YouTube, Example-Box family page on Facebook. And when he said this to me, it changed my whole philosophy about buying devices. And there was a guy that came on a thread that was complaining about how much the SX Mini cost, the original.
Yep.
And he was complaining about it. And this gentleman came on the page and basically wrote, how many alien devices are you into right now? And the guy says, I'm on my fourth one in 1 year. And he said, if you would have just saved your money and not bought those 4 alien pieces of crap that you have to deal with, you could have bought the SX Mini and you wouldn't have ever dealt with, resending one back, not getting your money back for it, and going out and then to me, it made me laugh in the first place. I'm like, dude, I don't buy anything 4 times. I mean, if it fails the second time, I'm not buying that product ever again.
Yeah.
I mean, it
No.
just, yeah, it's just
I think the only thing I ever bought repeats of were like Caliburns because I got them stolen or lost them or something like. I never bought something twice because it went bad or failed.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, with Evolve, they did simplify their software. So they evolved a little bit and helped people better understand how to use their software. In the beginning, that was difficult. Loading it onto your computer, getting it to work, understanding how to change, because you could customize that DNA chip to the specific battery that you had in your device, which created, a more efficiency. And I think that was one of the things I really liked, because I automatically noticed that I was getting more out of my Samsung's 50. What are those Samsung's 55Rs? What were they called, man?
Well,
My Samsung battery.
Oh, there was 25 hours. There was
25 hours. The 25 hours. I noticed I ended up getting better battery life with my DNA, my paranormal DNA device. Just making that simple adjustment in the software. So I mean, Yeehee does too. I mean, in your, because we've all had all different devices. We've all had a gene. I've had a gene device. I've had a DNA. I had a Yeehee device. Where did you guys notice any difference in battery life? And we all buy the same battery. So did you notice one device more efficient than the other?
Not really. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I mean, I did specifically buy the DNA chip and the Yeehee chip to attempt to do temperature control. But this was long after people had been doing it and before it was part of the vape game. Did I notice that I got better battery efficiency even using temp control? No, not really, because I was trying to use temp control but get a relative vape to what I was doing with power. So I can't necessarily say that was the case. Where I got efficiency was when I started getting into regulated MTL stuff. And then obviously you're vaping at much lower temperatures or power. So they lasted longer.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Paul? Did you ever notice a difference in battery life and from device to device?
Yeah, major differences. Major difference between regulated chips that were on the market through like all the smaller players, the big Chinese players. Temperature control I used to use all the time because of stainless steel in the early days when I was building a lot more coils then. And whatever voodoo magic that Yeehee has in their new single 21700, I can get more battery life out of that thing than any other device I've had in the past. The only other one that stacks up next to it is probably the mix from Aspire, the little side-by-side, the 18650, and when you could actually switch the tube out to make it into a 21700, that thing had amazing scope but the only drawback to that device is what you could and what you couldn't put on the side because of the diameters. Then when who made these? The Abyss, Vapors Cloud, or whoever it was, the one that Bogan worked on. This again, it looks like a DNA board, but I will tell you straight out,
you got that device too, Tim, right?
The battery life on this thing's great.
You have that one, right, Tim?
Is
Tim,
Tim frozen?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm back. I have the mix.
yeah, the mix.
Yeah.
That's the time.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you, Tim. Now you got frozen there for a
Okay.
second. Yeah, you froze.
No, it's because I opened my browser to look. Because
Oh,
while we were talking about chips, I was trying to go in and determine who was producing the Asimotus chips too. They're
oh,
the
that.
they're a,
Well,
that,
that
they're a G,
was their own. That was their proprietary chip. Because
yeah.
Modus was doing all their own. In the Minikin V2 with the slide down touchscreen,
Yeah,
that was probably the best battery performance in a dual 18650 variant that I've ever used.
I have that in this.
It's a freakish chip.
It's really
I
good.
don't understand how they got there with that. There's more voodoo in what they were doing in the programming of that chip. It's brilliant.
Yeah, BMI uses that chip in their mods, and the only thing that was hard getting used to was getting it to change wattage using your fingers. Learning how to do that was a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Well, actually, the one I've got, the Lustro or whichever that Stabwood one I bought, that chip actually has sensing control too. You can wave your hand over it and it'll change too. Which, to be quite honest with you, that's another one of those speaker in a mod kind of things.
Innovation, baby.
I mean, it was innovation from a smart technology perspective for convenience, so you could do some simplistic things with gestures and motions. But to be honest with you, I never really used a lot of that. Now, the slide thing you had to do because you couldn't unlock it unless you slid up and all that other stuff. But like the waving thing, I was like, I'm not. I'm not, clap on, clap off. I wasn't doing all that crap.
I'm going to vape you now.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go into RDAs. Who of us was so happy to finally see them getting rid of 3-post RDAs? Were you not happy to see that?
And I'll tell you why. It's because I would never ever. Well, it depends on which 3-post you're talking about, though. All right, because the early on 3-posts, you had to trap the wire underneath the screw. I was never good at doing that shit. Like I could watch a million videos on YouTube and they would make it. I mean, you pinch your thumb up against the thing and then you hold the wire and then you crank it down. And it was like every fucking socket I've ever tried to put the screw on the wire. And then the wire starts to pop out as you screw it down and all that. Fuck that. Fuck that. I just, but then when they started putting the hole in it, that changed the game.
Yeah, it changed everything. Yeah, no, that to me, when I first saw the first one, I didn't think the first one for me, I think was the I don't have it anymore. I can't remember the name of it right now off the top of my head, but it was the first 4-post RDA that I bought, and it was still 22 millimeters, still was a tight little deck, but it made life so much more easier.
That would have been back then.
It was expensive. It cost me like $125 for that RDA.
Watofo, Kennedy. Kennedy was 3-post. Watofo was 4-post. There was a few others back then, but
it was a 22 millimeter RDA.
You're right, and then the whole game changed. I don't remember what year it was. When now I can't even think of who they are. 528. The Goon. When the Goon dropped, that was another game changer when it was just a full clamp down system.
Yeah, full clamp. Yeah. And let's be honest, the one thing other than the decks that changed the game was airflow. I think they finally realized that they had to fucking concentrate a little bit more on airflow. Am I right?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, because I can go back and remember like my iGo RDA and all that other stuff. I remember when I remember sitting there trying to drill the hole out and make the hole bigger in that RDA just so I could get more airflow because it was just felt so restrictive. And it was it was a single coil. I think you could do duals in it, but I think I only did a single in it.
Yeah.
Again, one of those 3-post RDAs where it was still a bitch to friggin' trap the wire and stuff. But yeah, I mean, once airflow started to get better, and you could start doing DTL on RDAs, that's when your nick level dramatically goes down. It was like went from like 36 milligram dropped to like 12 in like a day.
How big of a difference was it for you when you started getting your RDAs and you started noticing better airflow, Paul? What was that one RDA? Is it the
Majorly.
tugboat?
No, majorly for me because we were trying to find like a budget RDA that was easy to build for testing liquids. That was always the key for me. And the one that has stuck out for many, many years, and I don't care what anyone says, is the Wasp Nano. That was the cheapest and probably the best single coil RDA for working and developing liquids. Okay. Yeah. That was a game changer for me and for a lot of people around the world. But airflow for me, when it became buttery smooth, there was a few that Watofo did in the very early days. There was one called the Cube, and the Cube Squared. That changed a little bit for me. And then the difference between bottom and top airflow in RDAs, that also created another big pattern. Then going from a Cylon type slot to either a mesh or a slotted, or with different top caps where you could actually change it out to do what you wanted to do with it. That's also when it changed. Yeah. There's a company that I used to buy quite a lot of stuff from, like many, many years ago. They're called No Name Mods out of Italy. And they've now been swallowed up by Aspire. And their stuff was so smooth. All of the European RDAs that were made, or small batch, they were different.
What was I thought that was me.
That's the bat. That's the hotline. That's the bat hotline calling.
I was like looking around, like, what's going on? For me, I think it was the dot mods peach, the first one, the original one. That one to me was a big changer too in flavor. I noticed a lot. I noticed my juice tastes better. It was easy to build on, and it was always a reliable RDA that I knew I wasn't going to strip the screws on. I wasn't going to ruin the deck or worry about peeling off some of the plating. It was just, to me, it was a great little RDA, and it was a great flavor chaser RDA. Did you did you use that RDA at all? Either one of you guys? The original dot?
No, because around the time that those came out, I mean, those were like, to me, those were like outside my capability at that time. I'll say it that way, meaning that it wasn't that I couldn't afford it. I just was not able to purchase it for particular marital reasons.
Oh, that's right. You're married at the.
Yeah. So the bank account was being watched quite closely. So, it was difficult for me to really I had to do PowerPoint presentations to be able to buy shit. So, it was kind of unfortunate. And then I had some of it in a cart. I was going to buy it. And then I just opted against it because I had so much stuff and so many other things that I wanted. So I just never got around to owning a dot.
What did you end up getting, Michael? What was your first one? I was curious. Everybody out there, what was your guys' first RDA? I'm kind of curious. So let us know in the comments what your guys' first RDA was. And if you haven't bought one, we'll talk you into one.
Yeah. Eventually we'll get you to bite. For me, it was cloned, whatever it was. I would say it was either the Orion V2. Well, okay. So the iGo was actually my first one, but I didn't buy that. That was a gift to me as a present for a Christmas or something. But like my real first RDAs were clones. So it was either the Orion V2, which had the vertical coil installation. It was the
Yeah,
Stellar
that was a good
clone
idea.
was a clone, and I think the Tobe. I had the Tobe clone.
Fucking Paul went and grabbed it. He's got it. He still has his original. He's got
Oh
like
yeah, definitely. I mean, like true vape junkies, like people who've been vaping for like 10 years or more. Like we never throw shit away.
no,
We
no.
got everything that we ever bought from like the first day we ever bought anything. It's all in boxes, and
We still have the boxes.
we'll never use it again ever. Period. But it's we just got to. We like that feeling of being able to go. Oh yeah, I got that. It's upstairs. It's in a
Yeah,
box in the
let me
attic.
go get it.
Yeah.
I made the big mistake. I told you guys this story, but I had all those boxes, and I ended up buying one of those 3D printed RDA holders. So I had all my RDAs all lined up in their thing, but I had all these boxes, and I was just like, I want to put these boxes away, but I don't want to have to go looking for the box when I need an O-ring.
Yeah.
So I figured I bought this it's a little tool thing for your bolts and stuff that had the little drawers in it.
Yeah.
So I started taking these little packages out of all the boxes, and I forgot to label them.
Yeah.
And I just threw them in these little things. And then when I needed a freaking O-ring, I couldn't remember what one went to which one.
Yeah.
It was horrible fucking mess.
Yeah. Now I keep all the boxes and I keep all the baggies of O-rings inside each box.
Yeah. That's what I should have did. Well, it was funny because that same year I decided to do that. One of my kids got me as a Christmas gift a label maker, and I thought this was cool. I could use this, and I never did it. I was supposed to label each little slot, Hell Vape, RDA, and Dead Rabbit RDA. And I never did that. So now I have this whole drawer just full of each little these little packages that I have no idea where they belong to anymore.
Yeah, and then you're kind of like when you actually need an O-ring, you're kind of like you're trying different ones.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't even know how much there's. You'd be surprised how much of a difference are between each RDA or RTA, just in the thickness of an O-ring. They look the same, but that one may be a couple millimeters, not millimeters. I don't even know what you want to call it, thicker than that other one, and you end up using it, and next thing you know, you wake up that morning and you got e-liquid all over your desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sucked.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Yeah,
That was downside to it. But yeah, I think I've got 3 tubs of boxes right here.
yeah. Let's talk about before we jump into the next one. But let's talk about the thing that changed everything for us. And let's be honest, the RTA was the game changer for all of us, moving away from sub tanks and not having to buy coils anymore, and actually having something that we could put 5 mils of juice in, and replace a coil, not have to replace the coil, but just tear it apart very easily. Thank God that eventually they figured out that we could take the bottom out without having to empty out our shit.
Yeah.
And change our cotton and put it back together without spilling any juice all over the place. But
Right.
what was that one RTA for you, the game changer? What was that game changing RTA for you, Tim?
It was not the K-Fun.
No, it wasn't the K-Fun.
Sorry, all you K-Fun lovers, but it was just not the K-Fun was not it. I don't know. In all honesty, I was a little late to the game when it came to RTAs, so I would say probably maybe the original Zeus RTA. I think was probably one of the first ones that kind of set the precedent.
Zeus.
Yeah, and then had me on that forever search for an RTA that kind of like covered all the bases for me, in terms of flavor and clouds and ease building on it, installing on it. I wasn't a builder. So I'll use the right granular terminology. But yeah, I think the original Zeus was probably the one that was like, I was like, okay, I'm not as intimidated by RTAs at this point.
Yeah. How about you, Paul? What was the game changer for you?
It was K-Fun V2.
Yeah.
And the mini a long time ago.
That was a touchy build.
Oh, not really. That all came down to wicking and wire diameter. That was the two keys for that. But then later on, the one that was so easy to build on and the flavor from it was amazing was the Amit from I can't even remember who it is. But hang on, I forgot one.
He's got it. He's gonna just go pull it out of a drawer.
This actually came out in like a couple of different variants. This was classified as an RDTA, but I can't read who this one is. This was actually Watofo Serpent. And yeah, that changed a lot for me and the Serpent Mini, because there was under airflow, but then on top of that, you could do a lot with it. And then from there was so many that came out in that time. There was gas mods. There was they started doing a lot of stuff like early on in the piece.
Hey, Paul, just one is enough.
and the other one's probably the Gaia.
Yeah,
they're the two.
Are you ready for mine? And I know Paul's going to give me shit for it when I say it. The avocado.
Oh yeah.
That was total game changer for me, man. I was just like, wow, okay, this is nice. Everybody hated that RTA. I don't understand why. I get it was difficult to build on. It was kind of difficult to wick and get the wicking right. You know, some people were like, oh, don't let it touch the bottoms. Some people were like, leave it hanging, thin it out a little more. But I had the best experience with that RTA, and I recommended it to everyone. And to me, that was the game changer for me, was that avocado. And then the Geek Vape had the other one. What was the name of that damn RTA? It had the 4-post deck. Oh man, was it an eagle on there or something? Oh, it was a great. I forget. No, God, I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was Geek Vape. It was because the avocado, and then God, what was the name of the other? As a matter of fact, I gave it to somebody, a buddy of mine, about 2 years ago. I still had it in the box, and he was starting to vape again, and he wanted a kit, send him some stuff, so I sent him that tank and a bunch of mods. But I can't remember the name of it. It was we're talking way back, but it was Geek Vape. Was it Geek Vape? It had to be Geek Vape. But the avocado was my number one. That was the one that changed everything for me and really had me start looking into more RTAs. And of course, after that one, I moved into the Billow. Remember the Billow?
Yeah.
Fucking amazing RTA. The hardest fucking deck you ever worked on in your entire life. That deck was so tiny. Remember how tiny that little deck was? And it was four posts. But I mean, my eyes, I needed a magnifying glass just to get those wires in there. But that was a great little deck too on that. The Billow 2. And that's it. Those are the three that really kind of changed. The K Fund I enjoy. I still have both of them. And I still, for that one, I mean, Tim's right. I mean, it's hit and miss. One time you get it right and it's great, and you fucking that first time you have to take it apart and clean it and re-wick it, and it doesn't work again the same way again, and it was just hit and miss.
Yeah, so many times I can remember, re-wicking and a freaking RTA to try to get it just right, like the amount of cotton. Where the cotton is sitting, how much is exposed below the deck, whether it can go below the deck.
You're choking it.
Yeah, it's like, and you think you got it right, and then that first couple hits, you're like, okay, I nailed it, and then it started tasting like shit, and you get dry hits again, and you're like, fuck, what the hell?
Or you take that first hit and it's just amazing. You set it down, and then like 2 minutes later, you go to pick it up, and it's just all
It's
your liquid.
leaking, yeah, all over you. Fucking, then you're just mad as shit, and you're like, why did I talk myself into buying one of these fucking things?
I did a build video many years ago. I could actually pull it out one of these days and show. I actually did. I actually did a couple of videos for the Zamble Box page. I actually did a video on how to clean your mech mods. I had it was a pretty great video, and we did. I did that one. I did a video on how to rewrap your batteries. I did a couple of different videos on there to help some of our members on there, and I thought this would be good for them to see how to clean a mech mod. And a lot of people were surprised. I think a lot of people don't realize how many parts there actually is to a mech mod, especially once you take the button apart.
Right.
And then you're praying you could get the spring back in there.
Yeah.
And all
never an easy task.
Batteries. Paul, you probably know better than all of us. Is there anything else they could do to batteries? Are we done? Are batteries at their maximum right now?
No. Nowhere near.
Nowhere near. But here's the question. Here's the problem. And unless you have a company that's willing to manufacture a battery that is actually dedicated for vaping, we're going to constantly get the same batteries that are designated for eventually here and now will be for electric cars.
No, there's a new technology now out in the power tool market. It's actually a gel-based battery. It's a flat battery, and they're stackable. They're nowhere near a LiPo, but these are very, very, very interesting. And the charge that they hold is equivalent, and the draw that you can put through them is actually quite a lot higher than what we've currently seen.
Yeah, I saw those. They're actually using those right now on the new electric cars. The remote remote controls. Well, my son just bought his son an electric one of those cars, and he said the extra battery was $95.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they're all LiPos now.
No LiPo. It's this new battery he's talking about.
It's a new one. It's a gel technology.
Yeah, and it's got all the built-in safeties just like a LiPo, but it's flat. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
I got a gel-based cell battery in my car right now. That's why I had to replace my battery in my car.
Yeah, but this is where battery technology is going, if they can figure that out. But there's also oh man, seriously?
There was God, you're killing me, man.
You're gonna kill him today. That's funny as hell. That's hilarious. But yeah, in the early
what was the other company? Was it Emerald something? Remember? Everybody was trying to buy
I remember it. Yeah, I remember it. And then we made up phony battery wrappers for them and stuck them on all our 18650s. I was on a show one day with fake Trustfire sleeves on my 30 Qs, and someone yelled at me on the show and said, "Get rid of that shit out of your device." So little do you know, dickhead.
Was it Everfast? Everfast?
Oh,
was
one of them. But they were shocking. Whoever.
That's fucking hilarious.
There was a few of them though. They were coming out of China, and
it had the horse on it, the red horse.
Yeah, but I don't remember the name of it. Ultrafire, it might have been. Was it Ultrafire? Yeah, I remember the one you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it right now.
Yeah, they had the red horse on them, and then every time someone would post a picture of that battery on the Zamble Box page, everybody's like, "Don't use those batteries."
No, we all said the same thing, but it's very curious now that
E-Fest.
That's it. E-Fest. Yeah, I was actually going to say, go and have a look on Mooch's page.
Mooch.
Yeah, because I had a bunch of the little 800s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. 18 350s, 18 500s, 18 whatever the hell they were.
I need to DM Mooch, see if we can get him back on the show one of these days. He did an early show with us many years, almost a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah, he's actually a really cool cat.
Very nice guy.
Very smart too when it comes to power and how things can be done in that realm.
Yeah.
But battery technology now, it's moving forward very, very quickly. Now they're talking, there's another technology that they're talking about. What's this?
The Sony VTC4s. I mean, if you could get them, that was the problem with that. And Sony.
I had one here on my desk, actually. I used to use VTC4s in all my mechs back in the day. They were hard hitting.
Yeah.
Put it that way. But
see, the thing was, is you had those people like, okay, we either stuck with the same battery we came in with because that's the one we tried. So I've always been a Samsung 25R guy. Every time I replenish my batteries, it's always Samsung 25Rs. It has nothing to do with price or nothing. It's just the fact that I know those batteries, I've never gotten a single bad one. Never gotten a bad one out of the bunch. They've always lasted me a long time. I've never had any issues with them. So I've been loyal to that brand. I bought in a couple of the Sony VTC4s and I've had troubles with one work. The other one didn't work. When we get super hot and I said, that's it. I stuck. And plus back then they were $4 a piece for a 25R. And you could get a shitload of them.
Not here. Oh
yeah, you guys, yeah.
A cheap battery here in Australia is probably around $12 now. But
25Rs, yep.
Yep.
It's other just one was good workhorse battery. It's a good workhorse battery.
Well, 30 Qs, a pair of them, in a regulated mod.
Yeah.
They were good for battery life if you're using low wattage, but
But let me ask you. I know there's I don't even know if that company is truly making batteries for vaping, or they're just getting the pick out of the bins. I know that how it works with batteries, right? There's a bin A, B, C, D, E, and then certain companies get the bid on certain batteries from different batches. A being the best of the best that are usually going to go to at that time, maybe electric cars, power tools, stuff that general house use stuff. And then you had, the ones that were, didn't, just a little bit degraded. And I know a lot of companies get to buy certain amounts of each one of those batches. And that's what I think ohms did, right? And then they kind of catered it to vaping, but they didn't design that battery. They repackaged that battery from that same bin from China that came out there. Is that correct?
For the most part, yeah. But there's been a few battery companies come and go that have been very, very good. Yeah, well, Lana's right. Molly cells, they're still good. I still like Sony for the most part, but their 30Ts, for 21700 mods. The other one was, what's the name of them? Galisi was the
I love Galicis. I have everything that's 2700 or 21700 is all Galisi. That's all I own of there. That's just
there was one by Panasonic that was really good for MTL work that I can remember from back in the day.
Which was impossible to get as well.
They were used.
They sold out so fast.
Yeah, but here in Australia, they're actually used in what are they called? Fire alarms and things like that. And so they could be trickle charged, in the actual item. So they're buying them from security companies and alarm manufacturers and things like that here in Australia. But we used to repurpose a lot of batteries out of power packs for
drills.
Power tools.
Disclaimer now, Paul.
What?
that you need to do the disclaimer now. We do not recommend that you
No,
repurpose batteries.
no, but if you know who the tool manufacturer is and what the cells are, then it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like DeWalt in their ones, in their power packs, they all had Sony. Simple as that. They used to use Sony and Samsung. That's all they used. The cheaper companies used to use God knows what they were, but they were rewrapped with wacky numbers on them. And also back in the day, and this is going to sound really freaky for people that don't know, laptops used to actually run on 18650s, and we used to repurpose their battery packs as well.
Yeah.
It was where you could find cells back then.
Yeah. Well, didn't we have an article, Tim, not too long ago, where was it the Ukrainian people repurposing vape devices, batteries to fly their drones? You guys remember that article? Yeah.
Wasn't me. I didn't talk about that.
Yeah, there's an article I read. I don't know, a couple of months ago. I think just when the war was getting into a couple of weeks into the war, they were running out of battery. They couldn't fly their drones, so they needed batteries. So they started collecting everybody's vape pen devices, and they started just collecting all of them. And they were repurposing the batteries to use for their drones and for their drone drop. To grab things, drop things. So they repurposed they had thousands and thousands and thousands of fucking vape pens, and they were just, these guys were sitting in this warehouse just breaking them apart and taking out the cells and then repurposing all those batteries for their drones.
Resourceful.
That's smart. And this is a country that's banned vaping, correct? Or flavors. They banned flavors.
Yeah, I don't recall what stance.
I think I think the Ukraine banned flavors a couple last year or something like that. I think you can get a tobacco, but I'm sure a majority of those pens didn't look like they were tobacco flavor.
Well, possible.
Let's talk about e-liquid. Okay, I've heard many people say this, Paul, and Allison has said it. I mean, what kind of innovation is going to be possible with our e-liquid when you're going to have to deal with PMTAs, even if everything gets settled, and then the next guy comes out with another e-juice? Is he going to be able to redo a PMTA and get a newer, not just flavor, but a whole new concept, a whole new components to this device that's even better than what we have today? Is it going to be hard because of PMTAs?
Well, that's where flavor houses need to start playing more of a role and actually creating lines of flavors specifically for this marketplace. But in saying that, there's only a handful of players in the game now that specifically make concentrates for vaping that actually do come with all the paperwork, do come with all the chemistry behind it, and are willing to hand over that documentation and all the testing data for that matter. Innovation, yes. You're going to. Sorry, no. I got to turn my phone off. The big thing now is, yes, they will be able to go back and refile their PMTAs. Yeah.
But it's going to have to be something really special for a company a dramatic difference to the product to want to go through that whole process again. It's going to have to be something that's just going to really blow the competition out of the water, a whole new compound to make the e-liquid even that much better. Or you think companies are just going to be like, that's not worth it. We're making money. Let's leave it alone.
No. I think now that we're starting to see a few cracks within the FDA and what's happening with the PMTA process, and the amount of the amount of information that's now going backwards. No, the cops aren't at my door even. No, don't go there. Don't go there. I think once we have one of the big players get approval, we can then go back and look at their PMTA and actually use their data sets and their testing. That could be the key for a lot of the smaller industry people to get back into the industry. But I said this the other day to somebody that until the smaller groups group together, the smaller liquid manufacturers, and put together a single PMTA similar to a distro, they're not going to have much luck.
Yeah.
They need to join forces. But Anakin, again, at the forefront with what they're doing technology-wise, they've got a new system now with water as one of the components.
Right.
We used to use water back in the day, or distilled water, as a thinning agent, that or vodka, when we were making liquids, and then put it on a heated stirring plate to remove the alcohol from it. I think that now things are going to have to change either very gently and very precisely, or it's just going to be like a sledgehammer, just bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, because you figure there's going to be a company that's just going to say, "Fuck you, this is better," and we're putting it out there.
Well, yeah. Exactly. Here's the problem. A lot of the smaller manufacturers in the United States now are gone. And a lot of those guys were innovators when it came to flavor development and the actual mixing. But now it's the bigger players, and I've even been told that a couple of the smaller players, or their mixologists, are now working for like the big tobacco companies, doing flavorings for them for down the pathway. You also then need to look at a couple of the major tobacco companies that also started buying up, and Reynolds was doing this in California. They were actually buying up back catalogs of recipes for what could be happening in the future. Okay, that's something else that could happen.
Yeah.
But I can see probably in the next 12 to 18 months a very big paradigm shift in flavor development and the technology behind it. Being able to manipulate a flavor in such a way that instead of putting 20 flavors together, that comes down to if you got to put 20 flavors together, that comes down to the flavorist, but then it's then back on the onus of that flavor house to then create all of those flavors into a single one, where there is a single document for that flavor. That's where the key is going to be. Yeah. It's not going to be so you don't have 15 different concentrates listed. You have bang. You have a single flavor with a single document with all the testing done for that specific flavor. That is going to be the key. It'll simplify the process.
Yeah.
Well, if you had to submit, okay, you're doing a PMTA for argument's sake, and you have to submit 6 or 8 different nicotine strengths and different bottle sizes for what you're putting out there. You have to give them each individual recipe for that and each individual flavor component.
Yeah,
that's stupid.
Yeah.
Simplifying the process needs to happen. And
that's their way of backing shit up to paperwork. That's their way of backing it up, making it. All right, let's get into pre-manufactured coils, wires, and wicking. Who doesn't remember the battles that used to be? This is the best cotton. No, this is the best cotton. No, I got the best cotton. Tim, you remember those in the lounge? I use native wick. I use Joe cotton. I use cotton balls.
Of course. I mean, that was always part. I think of the maybe the chest bump kind of thing where it was like, you were trying to convince somebody that you had stumbled onto the greatest thing since sliced bread that was out there just because we had so many choices and options. But I think it goes without saying that, we all had to come up through the ranks to the point where most of us went through the cotton balls and the silica. Well, at least for us, we had the silica wick and all that stuff
Yeah,
as we were coming up through the game. But then, as things started to diversify, and then, when we were told that organic cotton balls were totally safe and way better than anything else we were able to get our hands on, that's when you started seeing a lot of like cotton bacon and native wicks and kendo cotton and uh, untreated Japanese cotton that was, you could get in a bag, looked like it had just been pulled right off the husk,
yeah,
and so, everybody, um, had their own argument as to which is the best one. And I think that was just another screaming example of subjective preference, where you could sit there and say, well, I like this peanut butter, vape. And then somebody go, that thing tastes like shit. It tastes nothing like sticks and fucking rocks.
yeah,
And I think cotton ended up falling into the same thing. I don't think that I think that certain cotton manufacturers that were geared towards vaping were trying to find a way to do two things. Increase the absorption rate of it to make it stay saturated as easily as possible. So the striations in the cotton, so that
Mhm.
it would, it would saturate quickly and get wick up to the coil as fast as possible. And then the other thing was the purity of it. You know, did that result in burn in, I remember when people used to talk about that, like,
Burn
oh
it.
yeah, I had to get through like 4 or 5 big huge pulls before the cotton would settle in, and then it would taste okay. And then, then that's when your buddy would come around the corner and be like, oh, I use kendo cotton and there's no burn in for any of that stuff. I mean, it tastes great, as soon as you you pre-saturate, you're good to go. I mean, it tastes great, and it's like, so yeah, I think it caused people to go out there and find the
Yeah.
thing that worked well for them. But I think that the differences were so minuscule.
Yeah, I think Instagram really helped a lot of the brands out there. I think it was just promoted like crazy. Cotton bacon was out every time I went through every third picture. It was a friggin' cotton company's
Yeah.
pictures, Native Wick, Cotton Bacon, Mojo, whatever that brand is. But it got to a point where we got happy with whatever ones we used, and I've always been a user of the little cotton pads. I've always used them. I like the way they work. They work out great because I'm always able to cut my 2 strips for my coils, and then the middle part I would always use to clean my RDA off before I would put my new cotton in. So, and then I would throw that piece away and I was ready to go. That's why I enjoyed the pads, because I had that little piece extra. I would take my screwdriver, run it through the bottom of the RDA, clean out the bottom and everything with my screwdriver, and toss that away. What was your brand though, Tim? Are you still using it?
Native wicks now.
Native Wick.
I don't know. I cotton bacon was probably the first like upper deck kind of one that, that was definitely like made for vaping kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so I went with that for a while, and then I'm like, well, let me try this native wicks, and I just found that it wicked better for me. I just thought that it tasted better immediately.
Yeah.
And then I know that they all changed their products. It went from like cotton bacon to cotton bacon prime, and
Yeah.
they all tried to one up the last thing that they had. Me personally, I couldn't stand those little cotton square pads, because you always had to peel the outer layers
Yeah.
off to get to the softer cotton in the middle. When it became too much work to deal with cotton, I was just like, I'm out of that. And now It's a toss up. Like now I save my native wicks for when I'm like wanting to do something where I feel like it's like I want a little bit more premium wicking. And then I got the 13 feet. I got 4 bags of that, 13 feet for $12 off of Amazon. And I just use that at, like fucking, just willy nilly, like, cause it's so fucking cheap and it wicks well. I think it does pretty good.
How about you, Paul? What's your cotton preference?
I've got 2. The original cotton bacon, the very first one, and in like high end or like fiddly builds, I still use Muji. I have to. It's always been there. Japanese cotton to me, in those little pads. I don't care that you got to peel the outside of them off. But that stuff is still so good.
And let's be honest, there was a little innovation with cotton. I mean, they came out with, the great achievement, the shoestrings.
Yeah, the cotton, COTN cotton.
Yeah, I mean that was a game changer, man. Because a lot of people had an issue with trying to feed that piece of cotton through there. Now it was just like, oh man, just slide it right through there, man.
Right. I remember when you could go on YouTube and you could watch videos on how guys like prepped and rolled their cotton before they put it in their coils. And they even had like names for the certain kinds of like ways that they Scottish rolls and stuff. Like they would like kind of pull it out into a sheet and then roll it back and then oh my god, I'm like, are we really at that level for fucking cotton? But anyway.
Oh yeah, with the pads, I remember that one of the guys in the group goes, "No, you take the pad, you take that top layer off, take the bottom layer off, and then you start stretching it out, and you stretch it out as far as you can get it, and then you would roll it." And I was like, "Dude, that's a lot of fucking work, man. I just want to cut the 2 ends, put those to the side."
But I always had this funny thought rolling around in the back of my head when guys are starting to do this and they're pulling it all out and they're rolling it back up. I said, "What is this? Practice for rolling spliffs?"
It's not going to joint.
We're just practicing again. We're keeping our hands. We're keeping our hands in check.
You start to worry when your son grabs it and goes, "Here, Dad, let me show you how to do it."
Then you just sit there and go, "Really?"
But as far as cotton, we're pretty much done. As far as wicking devices, some change. Some are going back to the wire, which is some people enjoy. I mean, I've never been a fan of it, but have any of you guys used that device yet? The RDA with the rods, the metal rods.
Oh yeah.
Those are technically RDTAs.
Yeah.
I've never used those as a wicking medium. I mean, a lot of people say they work great.
Amazing.
But you still got to put cotton in the fucker. I mean, it's cotton on top of that. All it is just the mechanism to get the liquid up out of the lower tank into the upper tank, and then you still need cotton up there. So, I mean, I've never ordered one that had the metal rods, the braided rods.
Yeah. Braided stainless steels. Yeah. If a company that's watching and they make that art, you can be more than happy to send them to us. We'll be more happy to test them out.
I'll be glad to test one out and see how it goes. So feel free. Any vape manufacturers are RDTAs with the metal thingies in it.
Yeah. Send them courtesy of the Wednesday Night Live show.
I'm your boy.
Tim, John, Paul, and Allison.
Yeah. But I never tried that. I have some of the Taurus. I have a couple of the Taurus RDTAs, but they don't use that. They just the lower tank gets filled and then it just uses, it just absorbs up through the cotton that way. So I don't know.
But as far as wicking materials, I don't think there's not much more innovation. Unless they come out with some new fiber that's going to be even better than cotton, I think.
Well, I had heard there was for a short while, and I could be wrong in whether or not it actually works. And somebody in the comments, feel free to chime in on this one. But the one thing that people got into for a while, and you can also get on Amazon, is rayon.
Rayon.
They're those rayon, those boxes of rayon, and there's like umpteen gajillion bajillion feet in a box,
Yeah.
and it's like comes out, kind of like how they do cotton bacon or native wicks. It comes out like in a log type roll, and a lot of people swear by it. They say it's better than some of the organic cottons and the other cottons that are out on the market, and that it lasts forever because you have so much of it. And then I had read some reviews where people are like, it's not that they didn't recommend it and that it wasn't as safe as just going with standard cotton. So I never bought any. I never
Yeah.
tried it, but if anybody knows or has tried it or has a box of it under their desk and they use it all the time, what do you think of rayon?
Yeah. Rayon. It's been a while. Last one, wire. We've had some changes. I mean, I think, did you go through the nickel phase, Tim?
I never did nickel and I never did titanium. I've done stainless steel and Kanthal and nichrome. Obviously, the Ni80. I'm probably had some Ni90 along the way. I maybe wasn't aware of it. Most of what I see is Ni80.
Yeah.
Wire for me, the game changer was nichrome. Only because the first coils that I actually wrapped on my own was Kanthal, and then that always seemed laborious because you had to go ahead and use a lighter and oxidize the wire, which supposedly made it way more pliable, and then you could roll your coil, and I did all that, and then nichrome hit, and it was like
game changer.
yes, and it was like so soft, and it was so malleable, I guess is the proper term, and you could roll a coil so super nice and tight, and it just didn't. Kanthal seemed to fight. Like you had to really work with Kanthal, and it just drove me batshit fucking crazy trying to make a coil.
And you can't beat that fire up time too with Ni80. I mean,
Oh no, it was fast. It was fast as hell, and
way.
it just worked so much better.
Yeah, Paul, nickel. Did you play around with nickel a little bit back in the early days of temp control?
Yeah, I did many moons ago, but for me it was stainless steel.
Yeah.
That was the game changer with all different grades of stainless you could get your hands on. And to this day, a lot of people don't know this, but not only Sandvik, but another company, and this actually relates to the fishing industry, there's a company called Mustad, and they actually make some of the best stainless wire on the planet outside of Sandvik. And their stuff was all used for doing wire leaders and things like that in the fishing industry. No one ever knew about them, and I picked up on it, and I asked them what the grades of wire were that they were using. I'm going, oh, hell yeah, we can use this. And I sent it to a couple of my friends, and they said, this is actually better. Ramp up time on stainless was amazing, same as N80. But the only problem with stainless steel is the resistance. Yeah. It's ultra low.
Yeah.
Ultra low. I've got a couple of like stainless steel aliens that were made for me, and they're stupidly low in resistance. But it's instantaneous ramp up.
Yeah.
So I use them in MTL stuff. Simple as that, 15 watts, and it's like bang, and it's a really good vape.
Should we talk about mesh?
Mesh is still there. Believe it or not, people in Europe still use stainless meshes as wicking material, 100%. And Nick's 100% right. Stainless steel mesh and cable, that's the true way of doing it. And the flavor is absolutely phenomenal.
Right. But their idea in the beginning with mesh was to make building easier for the early stage person jumping into an RDA. And I think they didn't take into consideration a lot of the problems that a lot of people were going to have. They got turned off by mesh, like Tim and myself, after we took that first nasty motherfucking hit off of a dry piece of cotton that we thought was completely saturated, but it wasn't enough, and it wasn't touching the mesh itself, so it caused a little burn spot, and it was horrible. Now, I mean, they have come up with some better RDA decks for mesh. It's a little easier, and what's his name had the spring. I don't know how much of a difference that made, having that spring under there, kind of pushing the cotton back up towards the coil itself. But I'm not. I mean, I understand it does sound like it should be better, should taste better. It has a quicker ramp up time. It has less. It's more efficient. It has to be more efficient because it doesn't have to take up that much time to ramp up, and you're not actually pushing the button and holding it for what do you think the average person vape hit is?
3
4
seconds,
3
4
4
seconds.
3 4 seconds. And with a mesh coil, you're probably only doing that for about 2 seconds, because it's just a quick ramp up, and it's like right there in your face. So maybe, I don't know, I'm just kind of guessing there. But
Well, I think, yes, John, you stated the obvious with like the dry hits and all that other stuff. I think for me, one of the also key factors is with OG coils, that you rolled or you bought them, pre-made from a coil builder or something like that. You still had a lot more customizable play with a standard coil. That's not to say that mesh coils, when done right, because you had to do them, you have to do them right. There's no I can half fuck up and it works great kind of thing. With the standard coils, I mean, you can cut your leads, to where you want it to be. I mean, mesh stuff is built specifically for that unique curve that goes in the sheet, and then it has to be wicked right. But like with standard coils, you can get your spacings right, your height, you can change your height, where you want the airflow to hit it. You can install all kinds of coils that have plenty of surface area. Which is one of the big arguments for mesh, is that you have so much surface area touching the cotton at one time. So I think just with the variables of customization in a standard coil, I would always just stick with those.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get into the last one. And Nick, I know you're out there. I would kind of like to get your input on this last one. And we're talking about innovation and how things have changed in the industry, and how they need to continue to change for this industry to survive in the future and make vaping, safer and better for future vapors. So the last one on our list is the vape shops. In your personal opinion, Nick, what do you think the vape shop needs to do to evolve into the future to be better for the first time walk in, or even the regular customer? What needs to change? What needs to evolve in the vape shops? You can answer first, Paul, if you want to jump in there before Nick types all that out.
That's a really, really tough one. I personally think that vape shops, if they want to survive, they need to go back to the basics. They need to be able to show the customer how to do things. They need to be able to talk to them openly, with an open dialogue, and not being held to rubbish rules and regulations that actually stifle the industry. Yet, if you're in public office, you can make that claim. But if you're in that situation, you can't make that claim, or you can't offer that advice. That really sucks.
Yeah.
Back to basics.
Well, safety should be the number one concern, for whatever product. Yeah.
Yes. But you need to, you need an open dialogue to be able to speak to your customers or clients, whatever you like to call them, and you need to be able to put across whatever is needed. You need to tell them, oh, that's not so good. If they've got problems like their battery wrap's half falling off, you need to show them how to rewrap a battery or give them a new battery. One of those two things,
right.
One of those items. You need to be able to explain to them what the different wattages do, what the different devices are capable of doing. It needs to go back to that, to the basics of it.
Yeah. I mean, the silly part of that whole thing, Paul, though, is the silliest part of that. We're adults. We're adults talking to adults. You know
Oh,
what I
I
mean? Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's not an adult selling to a minor. It's an adult talking to another adult on a safety issue with a certain device and why, how to build, how to make sure the wick is properly. That should be first thing. That's the first thing you want to discuss with any customer. Why? This is how you build a coil. This is how you rewrap your battery. It's nonsense. We're adults.
Well, exactly, and this is what I mean by being stifled by the people in the world that are saying, well, you can't say this, you can't say that,
Yeah.
you cannot make any health claim whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I just look at that and I say, but hang on a second, it's out there.
Yeah.
And their argument is, well, go and read Google. Really?
I may get some negativity on this one, but I'm a little bit okay with not being able to bring up the health issues part of it with a customer. I'm kind of okay with that part a little bit, and the reason being is let the industry come up with some more science. Let it go in a couple more years down the road. I think right now it's harm reduction, and we need to stick with that. And I don't feel it's bad for us to say to a customer, yes, this is harm reduction. Is this 100% better? No, but throwing out, maybe avoiding the vape shop owner. Yeah, this is 100% better. Oh, this is going to save your. Yeah, I don't think that should be done at that level.
Well, there's risks in everything that we do. Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what we do in this world. There is a risk associated with it.
Yeah, right.
But they should be able to tell their customers or clients where to find the information, how to look and go through the information and help them that way. But from what I'm hearing now, you're not allowed to do that either. And even on websites here in Australia, you're not allowed to have links to any of these data sets or to other organizations. I mean, that's really stupid, really dumb, and very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's what's hurting the industry more than anything else.
Yeah.
And I'll put this over the whole industry, a blanket of being treated like 5-year-olds. We're not.
No.
We're all grown adults. And also the figures that are coming out now, they're showing that a lot of older people are now switching across. They don't believe the rhetoric that's coming out.
Yeah.
They're actually reading real documents. You take Twitter, for example, and you've got people there putting real science and real data there. They're going and reading that and then making their own decision, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let Tim answer the question, and then we're going to go do news. So what do you think needs to change, Tim? What needs to evolve in the vape shop?
Well, dare I say it, because I do think that, any form of harm reduction is good across the board. I think in order to kind of make the vape shops look somewhat honest, I think that it would, if you could see some of them turn more towards the specialty type shop, where it really kind of goes back to the grassroots of offering products that kind of put the stamp on what vaping is all about. Whereas, now it seems like you walk in the front door and like the whole first 3/4 of the counter is all disposables and all the easy peasy lemon squeezy buy it and run kind of stuff. I think if vape shops got viewed more like, like a cigar shop, in the sense that, old school cigar smokers kind of know what they like when they walk in the door. But if somebody's just now getting into cigars and they walk in, and you've got some guy that can show you like all the different styles and types and stuff, and and kind of cater to that person's, what they need based on where they are in their cigar journey, now it's like it just seems like you can walk into any vape shop and it looks like you're walking into a bit of a carnival.
Yeah.
It's like, here's all the fancy cotton candy and go and let me get your $20 a pop so you can grab your disposable and go. And no one talks about regulated mods and mechs and
Yeah.
building coils. And granted, they can't show them, but
Yeah.
I just feel like if you wanted to get the stigma away from them, you got to stop making them look like candy shops.
Yeah. 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 I miss having the one shop here. I mean, I knew how to build coils, so it was still fun to go in there on Sunday, and watch them have a build class, and they would have 20 people there in this vape shop, and it was a big vape shop, very modern. And then they would just take these plastic fold out tables. They just had them lined them right down the middle of the shop, and he didn't care. He still had guys at the counter, but he had 2 or 3 guys, kind of walking around helping everybody, and it was always funny because it's the first thing, because I think it's funny to me how many people have never used a drill in their life. And the first time they use a drill and they realize that you know what I'm talking, but you know what I'm talking about, right, Paul? And they go and hit that trigger, and it's like, and he's like, the wire's just like, it was just great. It was great though, because there was women there was men there, and they were learning how to build. They would start them every Sunday. They would always start them with a super basic 24 gauge coil and 26 gauge coil, and they would teach them how to wrap 6-9 wraps, and that was it. And then they would move over to the next table, and they had RDA sitting there for them to use,
Yeah.
and they would build the RDA, put the coils into the RDA, and he would come by and check them. No, you see here, this is touching the post. You can't have this. It's going to short out. It was great. And that's safety. Especially if that person just built those coils on that RDA and was using it on a mech mod. How important is that to know that that's going to short out when you're using a mech mod? So yeah, it's stupid. We are going to jump into the news segment with Mr. Tim up there. And got to spin forever since I played this. I got to do it. Here it is.
All right, I'm tapping my mini papers tonight because I don't have regular size paper, so I'm tapping my yes, you were out notepad and a Dymo label manager 280 manual. So,
wait a minute, you didn't get ink yet?
No, I bought one of those Dymo label printers, which is kind of like what you were saying. Someone bought you to label all your bags of shit.
Nice.
And, well, I bought one a while back because I was doing some smart stuff at the old job, and I was labeling all the plates in the office so people would know what switch did what. Anyway, right. So we're going to talk about a couple stories here. One's coming out of. Let me share. Hold on. Let me share. I'm
gonna get a drink. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go for it. Share screen. Come on. All right, there we go. All right, we're going to talk about the FDA a little bit tonight. I think that there's sort of some common sentiment throughout the vape industry and the people who are submitting their PMTAs and those who were unfortunate enough to receive their MDOs, which was a vast majority of them, felt that as though the FDA's review process was a little, well, I don't even want to say a lot unfair, not thorough enough, and also not with the times. It didn't leave enough variable there to really look at vaping as its own technology and having its own parameters outside of that, standard combustible tobacco cigarettes, or let's say NRTs and things of that nature. Vaping is unique in the sense that, of the inhalation, the aerosolization. So anyway, a lot of people felt that they needed to be a little bit more current and open to judging it fairly. So the FDA has now enlisted, and ironically, I will leave this one up for objective points of views. they're going to have an independent counsel come in and review the process for either possible augmentation, change, or revamping of the PMTA process. So, but the saddest part about this independent nonprofit organization coming in to review their process as it stands is they're all ex-FDA people anyway. So that might seem as though it's a little slanted, and that in fact it may not generate much revenue in terms of really taking a good hard look at everything. So this just happened fairly recently on September 21st. A 2-month independent evaluation of the Food and Drug Administration's Tobacco Center commenced amid concern from tobacco control experts that calls to modernize the center were not being taken seriously. It was this particular point from the tobacco control experts making these claims that got the FDA to do this. Whether or not this was just sort of an appeasement, kind of like, when you saw all the vape advocacy hearings and things to stop flavor bans or ban vaping in general, and the public was encouraged to come and speak against the councils, and they pretty much just let you, they just did it because they had to do it because it's part of the rules, even if they didn't care what you had to say. So in an August 22 letter to the foundation spearheading the evaluation first reviewed by Filter, 24 signatories had claimed the discussion lacked a neutral forum, as well as sufficient openness, transparency, and civil engagement. They may have been onto something. So again, this is the name of the company or the organization, for, if you will, Reagan-Udall Foundation, revealed that these 4 independent experts were going to partner with the FDA to review the process. Jane Axelrod and Keith Flanagan, former higher-ups at the FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. Alberto Gutierrez, the former director of the agency's Center for Devices and Radiological Health, and Charlene Fitzera, previously of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So, in short, the independent review of FDA practices will mostly be conducted by ex-FDA leadership. So I think the one thing, they claim they're nonprofit.
Right.
Exactly. But I can pretty much guarantee you that somebody is donating some money to their organization to potentially help them decide how they want to look at this process in general. So I'm pretty sure you'll have some Bloomberg
money,
some Bloomberg money behind all this stuff. Though the FDA affiliated, the Reagan-Udall Foundation is an independent nonprofit, and its involvement in the review of the Center for Tobacco Products is appropriate because they're nonprofit.
Yeah.
But the overall conditions of the evaluation seem to fit with the concerns outlined by the National Tobacco Reform Initiative, right? Like mine's. That's what they're kind of. It's like how can you independently and from a neutral perspective, an unbiased perspective, review this process if you are people that are heavily swayed to think in the same mindset as the FDA. The NTRI, a team of tobacco control experts focused on reducing adult smoking rates, wrote that CTP needed a more rational, modernized, and flexible tobacco and nicotine framework that seems to regulate products based on relative risks. And I think that that's all. I think that that is the silver bullet statement right there. I think I don't think the FDA exactly knows what they're reviewing, to be quite honest with you. I don't think they have the first idea of really what vaping is all about. I think they just see it through rose-colored glasses, and they just kind of look at it for what it is. And it's this, to them, it's this sort of unknown thing. So let's treat it as an unknown thing. And surely unknown things can't be safe for anybody. And the kids, we don't want to addict the kids. So it's relative risk, right? It's safer and a far safer alternative than smoking, and I think it needs to be flexible and look at relative risks when you consider what the product was meant for, and that's for adults looking to quit smoking. In an optimistic attempt by tobacco controllers to guide the foundation into suggesting concrete recommendations, CTP can take to guide the nicotine industry into the future, where the goal should ultimately be transitioning as many possible people who smoke to safer nicotine alternatives like vapes. So it's kind of a shorter article. It just kind of goes in the same sort of blah blah in the middle of it. But the NTRI letter, led by Dr. K. Michael Cummings, a professor at the Medical University of South Carolina, called specifically for setting product standards that streamline review procedures. This could involve either modifying or potentially eliminating the PMTA. So they're looking at it from a perspective that is the PMTA the proper vehicle for actually reviewing these particular products? They're not on the same spectrum as a true tobacco product, if that's how we still want to talk about them.
Yeah.
So that if you're going to have a review process at all, it cannot be vanilla and blanketed across the board and treated the same as potentially other risky tobacco products that might be out there, combustible and or non. It also asks the foundation to consider bolstering education around nicotine, a substance that many inaccurately still believe causes cancer from cigarette smoking, lowering the nicotine levels in cigarettes to effectively zero, and removing other burdensome regulatory hurdles that hamper innovation. And the final comment from this gentleman was, it is unfortunate that the current environment is almost toxic with policy and regulatory decisions appearing to be shaped not by science evidence as it should be. The authors continued, but more by political influence. And I don't think anyone would argue with that point.
Yeah, I just think it just, to me, it makes me laugh at how much balls they have to go and hire an FDA employee to come do this when they should be looking for maybe, I don't know, a panel of like maybe 5, maybe, to make this type of a decision. Maybe some pros and con people, not just one guy that used to work at the FDA, of course, knows the system, knows what they want, knows who their players are,
Correct.
and knows where their money is coming from, and knows which way to sway. It's ridiculous to me. It's just,
bottom line is the revolving door policy that the FDA needs to cease. Simple as that. Okay, this stinks to high heaven.
Yeah,
okay? I've got nothing else to say about this mob. It stinks.
yeah.
And if someone will find, and Lindsay Stroud, if you're listening, come and find out who's funding these Muppets, because I don't trust this for 5 seconds.
Yeah, this is
follow the
sneaky
money.
shit. Yeah, this is sneaky shit. This is like Nancy Pelosi selling Boeing stock when she knows a couple days before that it's fucking going to take a shit.
You're dead spot on this, right? Because we could sit here and talk about the blatant hypocrisy in this whole independent panel coming in to look at just the same. Now, I hate to play whataboutism, but I'm going to play the whataboutism
What
card
about
on whataboutism card on this particular one. And this was the same sort of argument that the FDA made regarding Juul's evidentiary evidence and studies that were put forth, saying, well, how can they be unbiased because they were funded by Juul? Basically, Altria paid, they were Juul funded testing results that came out. So of course they're going to favor Juul's findings and exactly what the level of harm reduction is. So this is almost the same thing. Yeah. This is saying, let's take FDA people who know how the FDA works. Let's bring them in, have them review the process and go, nah, they're not that far off. Maybe they could tweak this or they could tweak that. I'm sure they'll have to say something to make it look like they were doing something wrong. But it certainly, I don't believe, will be something that completely alters the review process or shows favoritism to the vaping industry. And I wasn't talking to you, Google.
Hey, Google.
That was the FDA's version of Google. Right there.
They're listening, Tim. They're listening.
It's called Fadoogle. Fadoogle.
Fadoogled. You've been fadoogled by Google.
Yeah. So at any rate, so there's this, right? So 2-month review process. I guess we'll finally get some report to come out. Probably buried in some third-party friggin' dark web website that'll say what their findings were, and we'll never really know.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be interesting actually to dive into that gentleman from the Carolinas. Where did his name just go? It was down the bottom, the lead on this.
Oh yeah, let me find him again.
I'd like
Michael
to,
Cummings.
yeah, I'd like to dive into him because professor at Medical University like of South Carolina. Um, Problem I have with him is that university's already been compromised. So, hello, game over before it even starts.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like we'll ever get an honest fair shake. So,
Um,
anyway, more doom and gloom, right? I guess.
sort of.
All right, so let's move on. So we've got that one under our belt. Let's look at this is basically an opinion piece, but I don't think it's far off from being factually true. They're using some old statistics here. But I think it's the sentiment that rings the most true, and that U.S. smoking rates have risen as a result of lobbying against safer alternatives. So, in a blog post on the Consumer Choice Center's CCC website, the group's deputy director. Now, you good luck with this one, y'all. Hold on, let me make it big.
That's what she said.
Yeah. All right, hold on. Let's make that name right there. All
Yeah.
right, Yael Asowski.
Yeah.
Yael
Yeah.
Asowski.
I'll do an Ed McMahon right now. Yes.
Yes. Said he believes the incessant crusade against safer nicotine alternatives is behind the recent rise in smoking rates. Nothing has been more egregious and harmful in our current age than the public health lobby's persistent denialism of the harm reduction value of nicotine vaping products and other alternatives to cigarettes. So they are kind of transferring back to the 2020 cigarette report. And I think I remember we talked a little bit about this, how there was a rise in cigarette sales for the first time in over a decade. I think it's a 0.4% increase in cigarette sales, but I think that is just a microcosm indicator of exactly where the market will go if
Yeah.
vaping is even further compromised and people who have taken advantage of that route will be snuffed out with being able to access the products that they're looking to get. And you will probably see a lot of people just simply go right back to smoking because that'll be the most readily available product. Because I think the hand to mouth transfer element is still there. And I don't think you would see them go like, well, fuck that. I can't get my vaping. What's my next option? Okay, I'll go to patches or gums or whatever. I don't think they'll go that route. I think they'll go back to the, you know, I need to be doing something with my hands kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't really see that um, being the trajectory to going to continue to find other harm reduction products. But they brought the number up. The total number of cigarettes sold by major manufacturers rose 0.4% in 2020 to 203.7 billion units
Ooh.
from 2019. And I'm going to assume that means packs of cigarettes, or do they mean individual cigarettes when they talk about a unit? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not quite sure what they mean by that one.
Yeah.
But it had gone up. So this is the first increase in cigarette sales reported in the last 2 decades. I take that back. Smoking is up for the first time in a generation. The public health lobby is to blame, said Asowski. The Consumer Center's Choice also denounced public information campaigns demonizing vaping devices, misinformation on lung illnesses caused by tainted cannabis cartridges, bans, restrictions, and taxes on flavored nicotine products. Whatever your conclusion, the trend that lowered the percentage of U.S. smokers down to 14% in 2019, when the last complete nationwide survey was completed, is halting. And that should concern us all, the CCC said. And I think we all echo that sentiment. It's like, why do you want to? I mean, we know why.
Yeah.
But why would you? If the general population's health is a concern for these bodies of federally regulated individuals are so freaking concerned about public health,
Yeah.
why would they want the most predominant vehicle for death at the hands of tobacco to be the pretty much the only readily available item that people can get their hands on. It blows your mind.
Yeah,
They're so condescending and hypocritical in the crusade in general at all. These public health bodies, anti-smoking groups, and allied journalists, whatever their intent, have sought to convince the public that not only is smoking bad and dangerous, no duh,
Hey.
an easy admission, but also that alternative nicotine devices like vaping products, nicotine pouches, and heated tobacco are just as or even riskier than a pack of smokes, added the group. So, clearly there's sentiment on our side. Whether or not that actually translates to people reading this stuff. Obviously, this is buried on the vaping post page,
Right.
and I doubt John Smith, father of two,
Hey.
is pulling up the vaping post at 6 o'clock at night and going, I knew the FDA fucking rotten scoundrels, were screwing everybody over. So, the sentiments are all around. It's just that you wish that these
They're
bullhorn,
snagglepuss. They're snagglepuss.
yeah, I wish that these bullhorn statements would fall onto the ears of people who need to understand that there is quite a few people in resistance of the general thoughts and policies of the FDA. Anyway, but that is your news for the evening. I don't have anything advocacy standard, have anything advocacy wise, but continue to monitor the CASA.org website. Check for calls to action in your area, and just word out on the street about anything you can do to advocate for vaping. And with that, that is your news. Back to you, John, in the studio.
Thank you, Tim.
That's me.
That's me. Golden locks of hair. Oh man. Good show, guys. I had some free time, some free bullshit time. I thought it'd be kind of a fun question. I know we all have Netflix. What is your current Netflix show, or what's your whatever movie show, TV show? What is your show right now, Paul? What's the going show you have to sit down and watch there in Australia now, right now? The Crown?
No, God, no. No, thanks. Pass on that one. No, Andor.
What is it?
Andor, Star Wars.
There's two Star Wars series that were dropping. Andor was the first one to come out.
Okay. Yeah, and
then what's his nuts is coming out on Disney. The Mandalorian. They're getting ready to do season 3, so they've already dropped the previews to that. So
I don't know anything about that stuff.
The saga continues.
It's just a never-ending story.
Well, yeah, but it's actually good now that they're going back through the old characters. And
yeah, they're bringing the story full circle. So I mean, obviously, it didn't the world the.
Now, George Lucas has nothing to do with any of this writing, right? This is them writing it out now, right? There's nothing left of his.
No, a lot of this goes back to the books that were originally written.
Okay.
And the characters from within the books, and they were portrayed in some of the earlier movies, but this then goes into depth because there's still a number of series come out. They're doing, my understanding, they're doing Skywalker. They're also doing Darth Vader, and the story of how Vader and everyone gets to their point. Mandalorian is actually pretty cool. Some of it's pretty funny, but some of it's actually really cool. But Andor, that's got some grime to it. It's actually really, really cool how they're putting it together so far. I like that. But the other one that I've been watching for years and years and years is still Deadly as Catch. I still want to see how fucked up they get on that ocean. It's hardcore what they go through up there.
I just wanted to talk about other stuff so people realize that we do have life outside of vaping.
You'd never guess it, though, right? After these 2 hours, you're probably like, God, go back in your hole and get back to your vaping.
After this
No.
show, I just go to my couch, grab my vape stuff, and I just sit there and vape. TV off, radio off. I just
look
sit
at a
in
blank wall and vape. That's all we do.
No,
Think
no,
about what
no.
we're gonna say in a week.
Well, and the other one that I've been watching a lot of recently is like different power tool reviews for what's now coming out and new battery technology. That's the other big thing that I'm looking into right now because I like going and playing in my garage and making sawdust. It's a lot of fun. The life outside of vaping, yes.
No, Mallory, there isn't.
And
was she right?
She said there's life outside of vaping.
No.
There's nothing. Vaping or bust.
Yeah, that's it. I've been watching the on Amazon that new. I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, so for them to kind of do a lot like a little prequel to it, it's been. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see any of it, but it's been really good. It's very well done, and it's been a pleasure. It just sucks because I have to wait every Friday for the next episode, so it's not like Netflix where they just fucking throw out a whole season at you, I'm like, go binge it in one day. This one you gotta wait. You have to wait every Friday for a new episode. But I've been excited for every Friday because it's just so well done. It's been really good.
I was never a fan of Lord of the Rings.
No,
seriously.
Blasphemy.
Didn't you read it? I know you read the books when you were in school.
No.
Oh, you didn't have to read them?
He just doesn't like Elvin.
No, I didn't have to read those books when I was in school.
Okay.
I actually had a really cool English teacher, and we were allowed to choose, like in our senior years, what we wanted to read and what we wanted to do book reports on.
Yeah.
And mine was Isaac Asimov, and the other author was Greg Bear. They're the two, both sci-fi authors.
Yeah.
But I read 2001 when I was in year 7 in high school and did a report on that. And my English teacher at the time just thought, what the hell? This dude's out there. Yeah. He's reading Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah. The show on Amazon is The Rings of Power. It's really good. Really good. I don't know.
I might have to watch that.
Yeah, it's really good, Tim. Yeah,
okay. I'll jump on board. Is that I want to watch the one that's about dragons. There's something about dragons that's out right now too. I forget the name of it. It's something dragons, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I know the one that you're talking about.
It's on. I think it's on HBO Max. Quick, Google it, Paul.
Google it.
It's Game of Thrones. That's it.
No,
it is.
It's called House of the Dragon, sir.
House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon.
Yeah, it's not Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is over and done. I never watched one episode. I need to
either.
Look back. All right, so real quick, because I don't want to run over too long.
Yeah, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, mine is I've started Dahmer like every other motherfucker on the planet. So I'm 3 episodes in, and it's creepy and it's sad.
Yeah, 2 in, and I stopped. I was done.
Yeah, you got to muscle through that first episode, and then I wouldn't say it's all downhill.
My stomach was aching. All right, guys. Thank you again, Tim and Paul, for joining us tonight. Well, you're always here. Thanks for being here, guys. And we'll see everybody next week. And that's about it. Don't forget to like and share this video. And we will see everybody next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bye, everybody.